terms of healthcare, he's been leaning no throughout the process, frankly. Part of that's been trying to get him to the table. He's been, as many of you know, he's spoken with you in terms of in the setting of a healthcare roundtable to make sure that we're hearing what our district needs to have represented there in Washington. And unfortunately, there hasn't been much movement until recently, and you might have seen there's amendment after amendment throughout the night, and frankly, he just doesn't think that that's the best way to make policy for something that encompasses as much as it does, certainly just by economic impact alone, never mind the human interest, of course. Secondly, real reforms that have been promised, we have some concerns that those are not there. So that's one of the reasons he's leaning no. He's not a hard no. He hasn't said that there's no way he's going to vote for it. He's still working with leadership and, of course, with the administration up until last night to see some changes in this bill, along with many other of his colleagues. In terms of everything else that's going on, he's really excited about what the future is looking like for things like tax reform, making sure that we're able to make some real adjustments. In my time in Washington, we often heard from a lot of you, tax issue after tax issue. We would postpone things, or we would do tax extenders, and of course that's no way to do business, and it's not a way to rely on what is going to be there next year, what equipment you can buy, etc. So that's one of his big hopes still, and I really think we're going to be able to get a lot of that done. The healthcare debate not being a precursor, hopefully, to how that will go. I really do think that there will be a lot of good success in that realm, and he's very excited about seeing that. So I think that's really the gist of it, and of course, I'd be happy to talk with you all after about any particular issue. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. We appreciate his support, and it was funny because we had this scheduled a long time when his office reached out to us and said he wanted to be here today. So it wasn't us reaching out to him. He really wanted to be here, so thank you. So, all right. Well, on to our panelist. Our first panelist is Senator Sean Bowie. Senator Bowie is serving his first term after winning office in November of 2016. Sean and his family moved to the Legislative District 18 in 1994. He's a product of the Kyrene and Tempe Union High School districts. Bernadette, I'm waiting for you guys to cheer there. All kidding aside. And he graduated from Mountain Point High School in 2002. Sean went on to ASU, receiving degrees in political science and history. He received his master's degree in public policy and management from Carnegie Mellon University in 2013. Please put your hands together and welcome Senator Sean Bowie. Julia is our intern studying at ASU in public policy, and I'll let her introduce our next speaker.
So our next panelist is Representative Jill Norgaard. State Representative Jill Norgaard was first elected in 2014 to represent Legislative District 18 in Arizona House of Representatives. Her passion for public service is rooted in constitutional principles of free markets, personal responsibility, and limited government. She received a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering Management for the University of North Dakota, and subsequently received her master's in business administration. Currently a small business owner and having previously worked in the aerospace and defense industry for over 25 years, please welcome Representative Jill Norgaard.
Like the Bachelor.
Where are the roses
our
at?
next-
Number one, number two.
And our next panelist is Representative Mitzi Epstein. Mitzi is a small business owner and a state PTA leader, a AYSO leader, and a lifetime community problem solver. She has spent her adult life working in the community and at state levels to strengthen the economy. Mitzi was a member of the Kyrene Elementary School Board and state PTA. She is a co-founder of the Apple Coalition for AZ Parents for Public Education and was also the co-founder of Yes Public E. Mitzi is a youth soccer coach, training administrator, registrar, and soccer mom. Mitzi is dedicated to the community, supporting our neighborhoods and local control. Please put your hands together and welcome Mitzi. Boy, I think this is a Kyrene homecoming here.
No.
Well, I'd like each of you to start off and talk a little bit about what you've been working on first.
Oh, well,
I like to stand anyway, too.
We've been working on a lot of things, and Jill and I are both on the Commerce Committee, and the Commerce Committee has done some really wonderful things, I think, this year. We've been working with Mr. Peters quite a bit, City of Chandler, to make sure that when we create new legislation, it's going to work very well for our city. So one thing that I particularly enjoyed working on was a bill that will make it smoother to bring 5G to our area, to Arizona. So you all use your cell phones, and you know that we're pretty much on 4G now, right? Fourth generation. Well, 5G is going to be the difference between, wow, my cell phone is so cool, I have all these great apps on it, to everything in my life is attached to the internet. So it'll become much smoother for the Internet of Things, and they're going to do that by putting lots of small cell towers out, and instead of one big tower, there'll be many places that transmit in many more places. To do that, they need to cooperate with the cities to affix these towers to many places in the city. And the stakeholders were just wonderful, working very hard together. Mr. Jeff Winiger was sponsored the bill and brought many of them together, and I was very excited to work on that to help everybody. This helps all of us to have a better quality of life. It certainly smooths things for businesses. And the Internet of Things, if you're not aware, is going to be the kind of thing where if you have asthma and you use your meter to test how your lungs are doing today. When my son had it, we had to write down every day, well, how are we doing? How is it? So that the doctor could see a trend of how it's going. Well, now you'll use this applicator on your phone or just your applicator, and it will send information to your doctor straight away. And your doctor will have that information, see that graph of how you're doing. So extrapolate that to anything in your life, and the Internet of Things is going to be the real game changer, the next game changer. And I've really enjoyed working on the Commerce Committee with Jill in that.
Okay, I will talk a little bit about what I call Jill's bills. So first, touching on commerce, one of the initiatives I'm working on actually with Ryan in the city is general obligation bonds. And what it is doing, it's going to enable the bond premiums that are, when you take out a bond and there's a bond premium, it's going to allow the amortization schedule to be the same with the premium as it is for normal amortization. And that's going to cause less debt towards the cities. The other issue I'm working on commerce is School Facilities Board. And what we're doing with that is right now we require the Schools Facility Board the schools to report a lot of energy results and energy documentation, which is already retained by the Department of Energy. So we're going to eliminate that. We're also going to, Schools Facility Board, allow the schools a little bit more flexibility. So for example, like right now we had 5 more schools that were approved in February, and that wasn't in the original budget, so now we're working on how we're going to do that. Is it going to be a bond or something like that? So the schools now will have the ability to start the building, start the negotiations, and then we're going to be able to allow the flexibility for funding as such. Another issue I'm working on is extracurricular activities with the schools. We have some schools that engage, they get a lot of donations from their parents and students and teachers, and some schools don't get as much. So we're going to allow the schools, but within the district, the schools that have more can transfer to other schools upon approval of the site council. And also we're going to open that up to a little bit more of some of the technology. So if you have extracurricular activities after school, you're going to be able to use a little bit more of those funds for software and graphic programs and things like that. One of the other commerce things I'm working on is with a company, well, it's NetJets, but it's fractional ownership. And now we have companies like Southwest who have hubs here. We have American who has hubs here. So the planes come in, they stay overnight, they do heavy maintenance. Frank's Southwest, they have a big hangar here. They just invested another $40 million in Phoenix. So what we want those companies to do is have a hub here so we can hire mechanics to take care of the planes. They'll stay overnight. They'll have a sleepover here. Then we do beverage and food, and we have a lot of jobs that we can create when companies choose Phoenix as a hub. So when you look at the fractional ownership, there's companies like NetJets. And right now NetJets lands in Stellar, they land in Scottsdale, they gas up and they leave because our statutes in the Department of Revenue have them under a different, they have them under transportation 28 instead of 42. So they are actually getting taxed like a commercial airline when they're actually not a transportation for hire model. They are actually fractional ownership. So we're revising that in hopes that we can get companies like NetJets to land in Stellar and Chandler Air Park and build a hangar and hire mechanics and buy their beverages here and employ some more jobs. And then lastly, which I've worked on with Bernadette, and this is probably, in fact I have a little handout I want to show, is in touring some of the schools and looking at early literacy type of initiatives. Can you hand these over? Sorry. One of the things that we came across is focusing on early literacy and our third grade reading and where that is relative to everybody, other schools and other states. And so one of the areas in the pockets of children and students that was not getting attended to is children who are dyslexic. And in October 2015, the federal government finally is allowing us to use the D word in the school, so now we can actually talk about dyslexia. So about 8 or 9 months ago, we started, it's literally a parents group. It's all volunteer. So we reached out to, Bernadette was on the committee, Garrick Taylor from the chamber. We had parents, we had pediatric neurologists, we had Read On Arizona, Expect More Arizona, the State Board, Department of Arizona, ADE, and we got together and we put together a handbook for Arizona. And 14 states have handbooks, 28 states have legislation relative to dyslexia. And so we crafted a handbook that's for Arizona specifically. We looked at other states, what they did right, what they did wrong. Alabama has a really great program. Ohio has a great program. Texas has a great program. So we reached out to those states. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What do you wish you could do over? Because we want to incorporate all your feedback and put it into a dyslexia handbook for Arizona. So we literally did that. It didn't cost the state any money. The Move On When Reading money was funded 3 years ago at the legislature. That's already available for early literacy. However, dyslexia students were not involved in that because we could not talk about dyslexia. Now that we can, those students are going to be able to have access to the resources. And so the Department of Education put this together, and the next thing we're going to do is, so if you have an OCR, you can pop on it, and you can actually go directly to the handbook, which is complete. It's all done. And we're just rolling this program out. Read On Arizona actually is including dyslexia now in their materials and their marketing materials. And so it's really a pocket of kids that we've missed. And it's interesting, as this is rolled out, we had a summit in August, and we had a booth there with a lot of other vendors, and it was a dyslexia booth. And we had more people at our booth. We were super busy because people were really excited about, now that we're talking about dyslexia, that telling their stories about their students and teachers. And people like, I'm dyslexic, I just thought, I was slow. Or, parents, you have your second and third child just doesn't read as fast as a first child. And it's really, it's a neurological condition, and it's a lot revolves around phonetics. And we have determined with some of the pediatric neurologists that we're working with that at 3 and 4 years old, at a younger age, you can really decode dyslexia in young children. And if you can address it early on, these kids don't want IEPs, they don't want to be labeled as this, they want intervention and get back into the classroom, and that's exactly what we want to do. So again, it was all volunteer parents that did it, and it's a great initiative that just shows when you work, you can get efforts that go into policy, from policy into practice, and so that's what we're working on with this. So. That's fun. Actually, on committee, and both Ms. Epstein and Mr. Bowie have supported all this legislation and been super. Yeah, it's been really. And it was funny because we had the kids, because people like, how'd you get this through? I'm like, we had these kids testify. It was fantastic. And and the one little guy gets up there, and his mom is his dad's a firefighter, and his dad was telling me about Charlie was getting all prepped for the committee, and he's all excited. And then Charlie says to me, well, Dad, you think there's going to be any opposition? He's like, too much talk at the table. But anyway, it's been, I mean, for me, people are like, oh, it's been a lot of work. It's been not my whole effort. It's been a team effort, and it's just been my pleasure. Someone said, is it personal to me? No, I'm not dyslexic. I don't have any in my family dyslexic. But 18% of kids are affected by this. And when you look at the literacy rates, I mean, with not a huge targeted effort, we're going to be able to yield a huge result. So I'm really excited about that program. Door number 3.
Last one, guys. No. Good morning, everybody. So what I've been working on in the Senate it's only been 2.5 months, is what I talked about during the campaign. I'm primarily focused on helping our schools, helping our school districts, giving them the support they need, giving our teachers the raises that they deserve. And I'm also working on trying to bring some bipartisanship back to the state capitol, because I think government works best when all sides have a seat at the table, all sides have a voice. Jill and I have worked really closely together. I think I've voted yes on all of Jill's bills.
And he texts me, you got through 29-0. Yay!
There was one the other day that was 28-2, and I was like, I was not one of the two.
I'm like, who are those people?
And we've been working really closely together on a lot of issues that impact more so Ahwatukee, but also Chandler as well. In addition to supporting good bills and trying to support education, a lot of my time I feel is trying to stop bad bills. And I think that's what the legislature is mostly known for. You hear about bills. Anytime the legislature is in the news, it's probably for something that's not good. So we've been working in a bipartisan way to stop a lot of these bills. And a lot of these bills, I've worked really closely with Ryan. Ryan's one of my best friends at the Capitol. We've been trying to stop a lot of these bills that go after cities. And the legislature, for some reason, a couple years ago, decided they wanted to take away control from cities on a whole host of issues. And I've been working really closely with Phoenix and with Chandler. We've stopped a couple of them, but it's kind of an ongoing thing. We think that we've stopped all of them, and they just introduce more of them. I'm of the opinion that our cities are doing a great job, especially here in Chandler. They should be allowed to keep doing what they're doing. So I'm working to stop those bills and trying to make sure we're focused on state issues. Because I think if the federal government tried to come in and tell the state what to do, the state wouldn't like it. So for us to do that to our cities, there's not a lot of consistency there. So I'm working on that. We're starting to work on the budget. You'll probably be hearing a lot about that in the next couple of weeks. I've met with the governor's office a couple of times, and I've said, my top 2 priorities here, I want to restore some of the cuts to education, especially higher education. Our community colleges get 0 support from the state. They're a huge economic driver. I want to see if we can help them out. Our universities, the governor has a bonding proposal that I know we're trying to work with the governor's office and the cities to try to hold the cities harmless. So that's something that we're working on. But I think this is a really innovative way to try to help our universities to support research and development, infrastructure, that I think is going to help our economy in the long term.
I think that is a $7 million hit to the cities and the bonding.
$6.5 million. So my communication with the governor's office has been, I want to support this. Let's make sure the cities are not impacted. And instead of 30 million, it's 24 million. Because that is a big impact to cities like Phoenix, city like Chandler, the larger cities. So we're working to make sure the cities are okay with that proposal. But yeah, in the end, it's trying to move the budget forward. It's trying to support education. We can answer questions about any particular bills that are important to you. One bill I was talking to Terry about earlier, which I know the business community was very supportive of, and a bill that I supported, was Senate Bill 1198 that dealt with lawsuits for ADA compliance. And that was a bill that I supported. That bill unfortunately died in the House in committee the other day, but I think it's going to come back. So that's something I heard from a lot of businesses in Chandler, and it was really important to them that they have some protection from a lot of these frivolous lawsuits that I think it's 2 attorneys are going around and going after businesses and basically extorting them and saying, we're going to sue you unless you give us a check. So it was very important to me that we get that bill passed and give some relief to our business community. So I'll be watching that as it comes back to the legislature, and we'll certainly do what I can to support it.
And ADA, that's a,
Something like 12,000 businesses that were hit from Chandler, Mesa, Gilbert area.
Mhm.
Mesa got hit with the most, but we estimate that there's somewhere above 3,000 businesses that were just hit.
Terry, are people familiar with what this is, with the disability? Okay, so there's some attorneys that are driving around and going to small businesses and saying, your ramp is in violation of the Disabilities Act, and they're sending them notices and they're sending them bills and saying, we can take care of this for X number of dollars. And it's happening a lot. Like she cited the number of cases, and so we're taking the effort to stop that type of extortion to the small businesses.
Sometimes it's even your sign is like an inch too low or an inch too high, and we're going to sue you. And this bill would basically give a grace period of several months, so businesses could comply with it before any of this would go forward.
One bill we used in the Ways and Means Committee was a deduction for your disability improvements ahead of time. The idea is, of course, let's help you fix your building and bring it into compliance rather than coming back afterwards to say you've made a mistake. So in Ways and Means, we pass through with this deduction for the improvements you make to your building.
Yes, I was Bert Mall. I was just wondering, is that a fix that needs to take place at the federal level? Is that something that, and I'd heard that what was proposed was that the businesses would have a certain period of time to be able to fix it rather than, be embroiled in litigation all of a sudden. I mean, the expense for businesses would it'd be better for them to be able to put that expense that they would have in litigation into doing what needs to happen, right? So I was, and I'm glad I heard this. I thought it was going through and was going to be successful in passing. So
Yeah,
I'm just curious, is that a federal, possibly a federal fix as well, or?
if we had Congressman Biggs here, we could ask him about it at the federal level, but we're trying to do what we can at the state level because, like Terry said, we've heard from a lot of businesses in our district and in other districts who are being impacted by this now. But Senator Kavanaugh's bill, Senate Bill 1198, would give a grace period, I think, of 3 to 4 months. So if they receive a letter or a notice, it would give them time to make the changes before they could be held liable and to be sued.
And part of it is, if I may, part of it was there were changes in the federal legislation. And it's not that businesses don't want to comply, they just didn't know about all the changes. For instance, Senator Bowie mentioned about the height. And one of the new changes in the law was that it had to be X amount of inches for the parking sign. Then for the van accessible sign, it had to be, they made changes in how many inches that's to be away from the overall handicap parking sign. So, I mean, and I know that we worked with the city of Chandler. We've hosted many seminars and informational sessions for our businesses, but it even cost the city of Chandler. I mean, they had to go and redo all of their signs and reposition all of their signs because of that at the federal level. But there are some things at the state level. Some of these frivolous lawsuits they were picking up the phone and calling different hotels. Hey, we're looking at coming to book a room. And can you tell me, does your pool have a lift? Well, they may have the handicap stairs that go in there, but they may not accommodate a days later, they were getting hit with a lawsuit. And so some of these things, it was absolutely these frivolous lawsuits. And these businesses, it's not that they didn't want to comply. They just didn't know that there was a change in the inch sign. So.
We've also been working on, Senator Bowie and I had a 2-hour meeting yesterday with ADOT and the city of Phoenix relative to issues going on with the 202. So we live in Ahwatukee. Anyone Ahwatukee out there? Yeah, she's up. So, I mean, there are just a lot of issues as we got into the plans, looking at the extension of Chandler Boulevard going west. That went from a 4-lane exchange to a 2-lane, and so we got a median added there. And then the Desert Vista, or the 32nd Street where the school is, the high school is, we didn't have an emergency egress there, so we worked with ADOT to get that aligned. And then we also been working on some things with the golf course and water and some sleeving with that. And the what was the 4th thing we had 3 out of 4
Water.
victories so far. The water, yep. So, but we've had a really robust discussion over the last year in how to address some of those things and listen to the community and what's important to them, and the bike lanes, and the bikers came out pretty robustly about the bike lanes and some of the recreational pieces of that. So we've been able to work a lot of that out. So I mean, for me, it's been really a high learning curve and learning some of the things relative to rubberized asphalt and the grades. And so now we're going to be working on aesthetics and more of that type. But,
We have other questions. Yes,
Actually, it's a question for Senator Bowie. Somebody had told me that you got a considerable amount of support from outside the state when you ran your campaign in terms of funding and campaign workers. Is that true?
It's news to me. I don't know what you mean by support. Like people knocking on doors and making phone calls for me live in the district. In terms of financial, no, it's in-state, so.
question over here, Councilmember Stewart.
You mentioned something about protecting cities as it relates to, you were talking about a little bit about something that's going on with budget, something like that, protecting Chandler. What can you explain a little bit more?
Probably the university bonding proposal. So one of the ways the governor wants to support our universities is he wants to allow the 3 major universities to essentially collect the sales tax revenue that's generated on site to go towards bonding for more investment for research buildings and building maintenance and so on. So if you go to a football game or you go to the bookstore and you purchase something, that sales tax revenue would go to the universities instead of it being split among the state, the city, and county, and so on. So it would be about $30 million a year. There's been a big battle at the legislature. Some legislators are just philosophically opposed to the idea of bonding. They don't want the universities to take on more debt. And myself and a lot of my colleagues are concerned because this would take money away from cities. Because if I go to a football game at ASU and I buy something, Tempe gets some of that revenue. And under this proposal, they would not. So our conversations with the governor, we've said we want to help the universities, but we also want to make sure that cities are not negatively impacted. So there's state shared revenue in that piece. So even though Chandler doesn't have an ASU campus, they would technically be impacted by this proposal. So we're trying to get that piece out that impacts the cities. And I think if we do that, there'd be a lot more support for it. I think if you put it up for a vote right now, it wouldn't pass because a lot of members have concerns about the city piece. So I'm working closely with Ryan and many others to protect our cities so they're not negatively impacted. But what I think overall is a good idea, but we also want to make sure we protect our cities as well.
What sort of feedback are you getting from the governor?
I think they're open to it. It's the governor's #1 priority when it comes to the budget. And again, it's about having the votes. And right now, I don't think he has the votes for it as it is currently written. So I think all 3 of us share the concern that we want to help our universities, but we don't want to hurt our cities.
well, and the other piece of that too is that TPT piece that would not, then the universities would be funded. That's going to be a constant revenue stream continuously during that whole bond process, as opposed to appropriating it every year. So that's the other thing that, people are, well, we want to support the universities, but it's just the best mechanism to do that. Because then we're a TPT state, so you risk then losing that TPT federal funding, which is a concern. And also whether the bonding capacity is needed with the current bonding capacity that the universities have, if that's the best way to do that.
Thank you. I think I have a question over here, Frank.
Is the mic working? There it is. Okay, this just came out this morning from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 10 a.m. this morning, Eastern Standard Time. It's entitled State Employment and Unemployment for February of 2017. I'll be brief. Unemployment rates were significantly lower in February in 10 states, higher in 1 state, and stable in 39 states in the District of Columbia, reported by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics today. 9 states had statistically significant unemployment rate changes from February of 2016, all of which were decreases. The largest of these declines occurred in Nevada with 1.2%, West Virginia with 1.1%, and South Carolina with 1.0%. 2 of those 3 are on their way to having no income tax. What are you doing regulatorily to help businesses in the state of Arizona improve their environment so they can hire more people? We know that 1 in 2 graduates in the state of Arizona graduating from a major university have to leave the state and find work out of state. So what are you working on legislation-wise to improve that for these businesses in here so they can hire more people?
Well, I'm working very actively on with the Commerce Authority and their choices with quality jobs, which is the R&D tax credits and another accelerated depreciation idea that I'm less fond of. But the quality jobs is a great example of, it's a program. Are you familiar with the quality jobs program in Arizona? Okay, so it's worked through the Commerce Authority, and if you are in a rural area and you invest $1 million in building a big building, and you make 5 new jobs that are at least at the median wage in your county, then you get an incentive of $3,000 per new job. In a metro area, if you invest $5 million and you make 25 new jobs, right now it says at the median wage, then you'll get this incentive also. So I'm pushing that, because unemployment is looking good right now, I'm pushing that I'd like to see that we actually improve median wage before you get the incentive, and not that you get the incentive for just keeping the median wage the same. The other proposal in there is to allow for a few tiers where if you invest less money, but you provide a better wage in the jobs that you're creating, then you still get the incentive. And it goes down to about $500,000 and 200% of the median wage in your county. So I like a few things about this. I like that it's by county, according to the median wages in the county. I like that it's median wages, not average wages, because the median shows, are we making great jobs for a lot of people, or are we making a whole lot of minimum wage jobs and 1 billionaire? So we're looking at median wages. We're looking at net new jobs, not just somebody says, well, they're new to me. If it's not new to Arizona, it doesn't count. And that's median wage. I am downtown in large part to help improve Arizona's median wage. We really have to do something about our quality of life and the wages that everybody makes. It's about more money in your pockets. Let's do something to make more money in your pockets, and that is what all of our incentives and job growth programs should be looking at, is how does it help people get more money in their pockets. So the Commerce Authority is a great place to look into things like that, and I'm working very hard on making sure that if this quality jobs program goes through, that we're creating these tiers. Well, I want to see reports that show the results according to those tiers, so we can see. I think if we give some help to our great job creators, that they will make great jobs. But I want to know it. And so I'm pressing hard for the data and better reporting on these programs, because we can help our economy to make better jobs. But I want to make sure that we've got the data to show that we're doing the right things and not just throwing money at a problem.
Thank you. Steve, do you still have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Stephanie. Steve Murphy with Sunpin Solar. One question I have is, I'll start off with the question and I'll elaborate a little bit, is are any of you working on bills as it relates to digital currency? And the reason I ask that is you mentioned Internet of Things.
Yep.
And one of the important attributes of the Internet of Things in 5G is higher transaction velocity, but an attribute has to be lower transaction costs, which opens the door for discussion about digital currency and its use in the state of Arizona. So I'm curious if anyone's working on a bill related to digital currency. Thank you.
No, it's not one of Jill's
We did have a we did have a blockchain technology bill come through Ways and Means too, and that was
Housing and Commerce.
was it Commerce? Thank you. Then okay, you know, Mr. Weniger is in both my
Yep.
committees. I
Yeah,
get confused
that's
sometimes.
right.
Which one is it? So the blockchain technology is what they use for Bitcoin, and that is technology that says if you know, all of you are working on something, and suppose a document or anything else in the cloud, then, and if you change it, and then you change it, and then you change it, we want to make sure that it's just you changing it, and I'm not changing it. You know, but there isn't an interloper coming in. So blockchain technology is the technology that keeps that all very much certified and safe. And so our first step was to pass this bill that would allow for contracts to be handled in the cloud, and to use this very safe technology to allow for it. So that's a step because it's a similar technology, and I would love to talk with you more about it because
That's interesting.
very
We had-
exciting.
yeah, we had some really interesting conversations.
Yeah.
Do I have other questions? Yes, Linda, go on ahead. Let me get you the mic.
I don't know.
One
mine don't
question
work.
I have, are there bills to eliminate income tax? Because as we age, what I've seen traveling around is that, and having properties in different states, that if you eliminate income tax, property tax goes up. And as you age, then that's a huge amount of money that you never, you know, with income tax, as you age, your income goes down, so your taxes go down. Whereas when it comes to property tax, if those start going up and you age, then you get taxed higher. And I've seen in Texas, you know, they have no income tax, and their property tax is absolutely really high. And, you know, I don't know if that has been talked about, because that kind of freaks me out a little bit, you know,
I mean, we have
and having properties too.
our corporate tax, and we have a program, I mean, our corporate taxes are stepping down, and we're looking at our state income tax and where we need to phase that out and look at, we had Art Laffner come out last month with the Laffner curve and start talking about the economics of, okay, the state income tax reduction versus what states, and it's shown now the 9 states that have decreasing income tax have started to offset by increase in commerce. And so we're looking at some of those models to see how we can do that without, I mean, do we rip the Band-Aid off, or do we step that type of a process in? So those conversations are happening right now.
If I may also, Arizona is for our state and local taxes. In Arizona, when you retire, you fall into a higher tax bracket. You pay more of your income in taxes when you retire, assuming that, as you mentioned, most folks, when they retire, their income goes down. Well, in Arizona, we are absolutely regressive, so that every time your income chunks down, you pay more taxes in your local and state taxes. So it was one of the reasons I asked to be on the Ways and Means Committee, because that's not sustainable. And if you look at the principles of good tax policy, you know, fairness, adequacy, stability, neutrality, exportability, all those things, being that severely regressive is just not sustainable and can actually cause our job productions to be lagging. That's causing us a little bit of lag. So I will be working hard on creating a better metrics on the regressivity and the sustainability of our tax policies, because we want to make sure that we're supporting our basic functions. And if we remain that regressive, we have 2 big problems. 1, it's not sustainable, and 2, you shouldn't fall into a higher tax bracket when you retire. So we really need to look at that, and when we look at eliminating the income tax, that is one of the few progressive taxes that we can use to offset the regressivity of a sales tax and other kinds of taxes. So, and I'll let it go there because I've lost you already.
One more question? Okay. All right, let's give all three of them a round of applause.
Thank you.